Okay, I didn't know if we wanted to give Commissioner Cooper a couple more minutes.
No, she sent me an email just a little bit ago that indicated she was not.
Okay, so we're gonna be missing Commissioner Mader and Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, I would like to call the the May 28th, 2024 Commission meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will begin to my left with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Vonderschmidt, present. Commissioner Juniman here.
Commissioner Ham here.
Commissioner Souza here.
Commissioner Combs, present.
All right, seeing as though we have 5 members present, we do have a quorum. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission for study. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted upon by one motion with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item from either the Planning Commission or from the floor, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. Are there any items any member of the public or the commissioners would like removed from the consent agenda? All right, seeing as none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Juniman and a second by Commissioner Sosa. All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have a motion for the standing, the consent agenda 5-0. All right, our regular agenda item tonight, the first item on the agenda is Villas on Grand, item number 23-302-05, final development plan and final plat located north of East Grand Street and White Drive. Do I have a staff presentation?
You do.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Again, this is item 1. The subject property is located on the north side of Grand Street, just north of White Drive and Grand Star Elementary School. Site is approximately 33 acres, and this is the first phase of this part of the senior living facility. First phase is being developed into 36 lots. Again, this is consisting of 36 lots that are part of a larger 55 and older and senior living community. This development will be made up of single, 2, and 4 family homes and a clubhouse. This includes 25 single family villa type homes, 36 fourplex units, and 1 duplex unit. There's approximately 14.75 acres of open space that the clubhouse is included in, with pickleball courts and walking trails. And this is the second half of that development. As you can see, this is also including a retention pond / lake. And you can see the walking trails that go around it. And this is a picture of the entire development for this first phase. As you can see, the building envelopes around the fourplex units. They are actually being developed into a condo type of development, so that which basically only includes like where the footprint of the building is and maybe a couple feet around those structures. And then on the east-hand side of this, or sorry, the west-hand side of this first phase is where the single-family villas are going as well. This is an example of the elevation on the fourplex. We don't normally take or request elevations for the single-family homes. It allows for a little bit more diversification in those types of single-family units. Even though this is the final development plan, we're typically concerned more with something that houses or has a few more units within it. So we'll be checking basically the plot plans that come in right before they get their building permits. That's when we check for compliancy to the code. We've got and because this is such a diverse, multi-unit type development, they've got a lot of deviations, actually 10 of them. If you want me to go through them, I can go through them, or I take it that all the commissioners have read through the deviations. All right. And the staff did recommend approval on all the deviations. The staff findings is that the site is capable of accommodating the building use and other site design elements. The design and arrangement of the building is consistent with good planning and landscaping design. The architecture and building design uses quality materials, and the style is appropriate for the context, and the plan is in substantial compliance with the code. Staff recommends approval of application 23-302-05, a final development plan and associated final plat for Villas on Grand first plat with the conditions in the recommended motion. And I do want to mention that I'm changing the last recommendation. This condition actually states that it shall be reviewed. I'd like to make that may be reviewed. There's conflicting maps of the 1 mile radius around the New Century Airport, the area of influence. They may not need to go before the Airport Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. And I think if we address that as the applications may be reviewed and approved by the Johnson County Air Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any questions for staff, or would you like to wait until after we hear from the applicant? Are we good? All right. If the applicant can please come forward. Please state your name and address for the public record, please.
Todd Allenbrand, Payne and Brockway, 426 South Kansas Avenue. Thanks for the opportunity to come forward. It's been kind of a journey getting to this point based on when we submitted the application, but we appreciate the patience that staff has shown us and the help they've given us to get us to this point. And we've read through the report and we're comfortable and we agree with the staff report. And I'm just here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I will start to my right. Commissioner Cooper, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Combs. Wrong
I
seat.
don't know.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Sosa.
When I received the package last week, usually when I see there are a lot of deviations on a final plan, usually worries me because I know why so many deviations, you know. I know the staff said that because it's multiple units or diverse units. So I just went through every single one, and I was, it looks like, so the first one there that talks about the setbacks, from 25 to 15, so it's gonna be, is that because, is it too close to the,
Well, what we're finding out with the market is these type of homes, since the lots are generally speaking, they're 55 foot wide. So they accommodate, you know, a 45 foot wide house. Well, to get the square footage that we're seeing in the market, it means the house tends to be a little deeper. And then to top it off, popular right now in the market, if everybody's aware, everybody likes a lanai, which technically becomes an enclosed portion of the house, which means we have to meet the setbacks, which causes on some of these lots depth-wise, it means that that lanai is too close. It's sometimes over, or the majority of the times in these type of developments, it's over that 25-foot building line. We're not saying that we'll go down to 15, but it gives us a flexibility, an additional 10 more feet to adapt if we need to.
okay.
And that's the point of it.
Because when I saw from 15, I mean 25 to 15, that's a 60% reduction. I was like, okay, why, you know, so much? Okay, that explains. The third one about hardscape increased to 48%, so there's a lot of concrete. Not gonna have a lot of space for landscape, I assume.
Well, I think this probably this is more implies to the cul-de-sac lots more than anything.
Okay.
I mean, it covers all the lots, right? Because we're not asking for deviations for just specifically cul-de-sac lots. But just by the nature, it covers all the lots. On the cul-de-sac lots, we can't meet that hardscape frontage because of the way the cul-de-sac lots come to like a point, or well, not a point, but it's like the bottom part, this narrow part of a piece of pie. It's the right-of-way frontage is less than what you typically would see on a rectangle or a square lot. So that's the reason for the deviation, is because we just can't meet that hardscape number from the front of the house to the right-of-way.
Okay. Sidewalks from 8 to 6.
That would be for head-in parking. This would be in the clubhouse area, or even in the future when we come in with the senior living. That's where the overhang of the vehicle is. We asked to have that reduced to 6 feet versus 8. We've had that reduction in other parts of the city, in Gardner specifically, as long as when the vehicle's parked there, as long as they meet the minimum requirement for ADA, which is 3 feet, then it would be okay. And typically, unless somebody has a pickup truck and they decide to back in, you could have a 10-foot sidewalk and you're probably not going to meet the ADA. But a head-in pickup, typically pickup trucks have a larger bumper, or an older large model car would have their bumper be out farther, and they're typically not much more than maybe 18 to 20 inches in front of the curb stop.
All right, thank you. I just
All right.
appreciate it.
Commissioner Juniman?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, just some comments. I think it mentioned the staff report of the dense style of housing, you know, reducing some of these setbacks, especially for like the fourplex area and the senior area, like that's gonna make it more walkable and closer together. So, and just varied stuff from the city rather than just more grass, you know, for people if
Yeah.
they don't wanna take care of it necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's to give it more of a open feel, especially around the fourplex and the duplex units. And I'm not sure, maybe Bob or Dave or Jesse can answer it. I don't know how many of these products are in Gardner for sure. I know there's some that are similar. I don't know if they're set up the same. They might be rentals. But these are scattered in, Olathe has quite a few, and parts of Lenexa and Overland Park have them as well. One that's pretty close to the city in Gardner that would be like 159th and Ridgeview. There's one in Olathe called Asbury, and it's the similar setup.
Yep.
All right.
Similar
Is
questions
there-
that you already answered for
Oh.
me, so, thank you.
Okay. My comment, this is more, I think, for staff than the applicant. Reading through all the deviations, I understand why we're doing this, because I think with the, talking about the sidewalks and truck parking, I think we dealt with that with tall grass. My only question is, are there going to be new, like, measures for these smaller lots, smaller houses, so that we don't have to keep doing these deviations? And I think it would be more comprehensible by the public if they know, they see the deviation and understand that it's standard for smaller lots.
Yeah, and this would go beyond just this case, so
Mm.
when I'm talking to this, I'm not necessarily talking just to the specifics of this, but in these building types, for these kinds of formats of housing and things like that, what we generally have done, or what has been done in the code, is set out the perfect kind of scenario under which we would want these things, because sometimes we have people that just want to do these and they wouldn't come through the planned scenario, so sometimes that's why you get these deviations, is when we're in the planned scenario like this, we have the ability to make deviations, but there are trade-offs that are also made
Right.
during that period of time for the development, which help the city to create a better development as well as the developer in that sense. So we do, with all of these cases, we kind of take a look back at the code, we look at the decisions that were made, the things that were deviated from, and we reassess whether that code will change or not. So I anticipate, over the next year or so, as we're doing that, we may have some things where we change some of these deviations. This type of housing, these units in this kind of format, is a little bit unique to Gardner. We have not had this in a lot of development here before, so we're trying to feel our way through this. And even some of the development I'm familiar with, where they've taken single-family homes and made the lot, for instance, 5 feet on all sides of the house, and that's your lot, and everything else is under common ownership for the HOA to take care of. Our code does not do a really good job of accommodating those things. So as we're looking at these different formats, I guess the short answer is, yeah, we're assessing that, but we also kind of like those items in place, because we sometimes get that one-off development where they don't want to go through the planned development process. We want to make sure they're meeting some basic requirements
Right.
there that are acceptable.
I guess what I was thinking is, like, depending on lot size and type, like, would there be like a subcategory?
There could be,
yeah.
There could be in that process. I know especially with the smaller formats that we're seeing.
Yeah, okay. Other than
And I
that-
will tell you, the rear yard setback has been problematic even for single-family homes because of what was discussed here. You're getting those covered extensions that are coming off the backs of the houses. And some of the lots here in Gardner are relatively shallow, so we create conflicts in that rear yard setback periodically through that too. So that kind of deviation is not that uncommon, and we're seeing more demands for those kind of covered patios.
Right. Okay, thank you, that makes sense. That was my only comment. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Are there any discussion items that the commissioners would like to address? All right, seeing as though there is no further comments, I will entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Combs, a second?
Second.
All right, and the second by Commissioner Sosa. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Abstaining. All right, we've got 5-0, motion of the approval of villas on grand final development and final plat.
And just, I want to clarify, because Bob had the wording change on the last item.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm assuming, I'm gonna look to who made the motion and made the second, that there was an understanding that in that fifth motion, it would read the applications may be reviewed and approved by Johnson County Airport Commission and Board of County Commissioners prior to the development or the recording of the plat.
Yes, that is correct. I'm happy to speak separately if need be, but yes, that was understood.
Is everybody of
Yeah.
that understanding? As well
Yes.
as we're all in common favor? And Again, as Bob indicated, part of the problem is we had a conflict in maps, and so we're trying to figure out where that boundary is. The county will actually make the final determination because it's based on the property that the airport owns. So that's where we'll have to find that out.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right, do we need to take another vote with that clarification? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, item number 2 on the regular agenda, Grand Mission Estates. Item number 23-302-06, final development plan and final plat located north of East Grand Street and Grand Star Elementary. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, again, this is also the part of the overall Grand Street development. This section is actually what we would call pretty close to like what we call a state type of single-family housing. So it's larger lot development. As you can see from the map, Grand Mission Estate Development is located along the north side of Grand Street, across from the Trail Ridge Middle School, and consists of approximately 15.6 acres, again, for single-family housing. This development will consist of 29 lots and 3 tracts designated for open space. Average lot size is around 19,000 square feet. This part of Grand Street development is designed for large lot, single-family housing, of course. And the staff finding is that this plan is generally in compliance with the preliminary development plan. The project is consistent with various policies in the comprehensive plan, and the proposed arrangement of buildings and open space is consistent with good planning and engineering practices and principles. And the final plat is in substantial compliance with the preliminary plat. Excise tax will need to be collected prior to the release of the plat for recording, and the project may be within 1 mile of the New Century Airport. Has been reviewed and will be reviewed by the Airport Authority and sent over to the Board of County Commissioners. Sorry, this wording should have been changed. It will be sent over maybe to both the Airport Authority and the County Board of Commissioners. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, is that another item number 3?
Yeah, yes, but it's actually, it'll be spelled out in the staff recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Staff recommends approval of the final development plan and associated final plat for Grand Mission Estates, first phase, with the conditions outlined in the recommended motion.
All right, thank you. All right, if the applicant could please approach, please state your name and address again, thank you.
Todd Allenbrand, Payne and Brockway, 426 South Kansas Avenue. Again, appreciate the opportunity to come forward and all the same stuff stands for the last one.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty cut. It's pretty straightforward.
Right, okay, all right, then I will take it back to my
Judge,
commissioners.
yeah, I do have one question, some more clarity, it may even be for staff. Could we bring up the aerial, which was maybe 4 slides prior to this one, maybe at the beginning? Sorry, that one, yes. Okay, so here was my question again, this maybe for both the applicant and staff. The parcel ID that's identified here is ending in 1005, but within the confines of the red lines, it looks like there's another parcel in the bottom left. And I'm curious, had that previously been identified somewhere, or do I need to ignore that parcel? Okay, again, because the parcel ID is only identifying one.
You're correct. It should have included both.
That will be my only question.
All right,
And those parcels are under the same ownership, just for your clarification.
all right.
I did very.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're
I'm
fine.
finished.
Okay. Commissioner Sosa.
I like when there's a plan, there's no deviations.
Well, these size lots don't typically require very many deviations. I mean, we targeted 95 foot wide by 150 foot deep. That's kind of our minimum size lot. So some of them are going to be substantially larger, especially in the cul-de-sacs.
All right. Commissioner Janaman.
No questions.
Commissioner Benjamin.
No question.
Okay. Seeing as though there are no questions, I will open it for commissioner discussion. No? All right. Seeing as though there are no questions, no discussion, I will entertain a motion.
I can make that motion.
I'll second.
Oh, I was gonna,
Oh, are you gonna read the whole motion?
well, I was just gonna, well, I guess, I don't know if I need to read the whole thing, but I'll read the first part and then make the note about the thing. So after review of application 23-302-06, final development plan and associated final plat for Grand Mission Estates, and staff report dated May 28th, 2024, the Planning Commission recommends approval applications as proposed and recommends the governing body accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements provided the following conditions are met. Items 1 and 2 in the staff report, and then in item number 3, change shall to may in that sentence.
All right, thank you, and I will take a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a first by Commissioner Janaman and a second by Commissioner Vanderschmidt. All in approval?
I just have a question. So, I just have a question before so on the recommended motion, we say that the planning commission approves, so are we recommending approval?
No. So for final plans and final plats, you all are the approval body.
So we approve.
Right, so what the part of that process that we go through is obviously the preliminary plans that are brought through development plan process go to you with a recommendation to the city council. The city council has approved the preliminary plan for this development. So the final plans just come to you for that approval in this process. Now the final plats will go to the council, but their job at this stage is merely to accept right-of-ways and easements that are dedicated. They're not technically approving the final plat. They're accepting that right-of-way and easements that are proposed through that final plat. So it's a little bit different in that sense.
So we actually approve, okay.
Okay, so I've got in approval.
Commissioner Combs, I approve.
Okay, all right. And oppose? All right, abstain? All right, motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 3, Nice Ice Baby. Item number 24-305-01, conditional use permit. This is a public hearing item. Nice Ice Baby is located at 312 West Main Street. Staff?
Good evening. As you mentioned, the subject property is located at 312 West Main Street, approximately 250 feet west of Pine Street. The lot is 16,500 square feet in size. It is zoned C1, which is the central business district, and the property is surrounded by residential zoning and land use. However, it is labeled on the future land use map as community mixed use. There is an existing house on the western portion of the lot, but it is not currently occupied. In 2023, a conditional use permit application for Arisa Hibachi was heard before the Planning Commission, but the approval process ended when the application was withdrawn. Since that time, there have been 2 food trucks that have operated on the site periodically with a temporary use permit, but they would only be on site for a few days a month. Nice Ice Baby proposes to operate a food trailer that will sell shave ice cones. When in season from the months of May to August, the trailer will stay on site when not in operation. It will be removed from the site between September and April. The trailer is shown on the site plan as the blue rectangle. Seating will be located in front of it. The orange line is a fence that will be installed between the trailer and the existing house. And the dashed yellow line is a barrier to separate the automobiles and pedestrians. Staff finds that the use meets the intent of the C1 zoning district. When compared to Ursa Hibachi, the operating hours are more restrictive. The use is seasonal, with the trailer being removed during the off-season months, and the ice cone sold should not require as intensive an operation when on site. The recommended conditions of approval are similar to those proposed previously. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of application 24-305-01, a conditional use permit for Nice Ice Baby at 312 West Main with the conditions in the suggested motion. And we have 2 pages. There are 13 conditions here.
All right, thank you very much. This is a public hearing item, so at this time, I will open it. Oh, I'm sorry. Strike that. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the public record.
Hello, I'm Justin Smith, 18525 Juniper Street here in Gardner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So, Nice Ice Baby has been here in Gardner before. It used to be located across the street in the pharmacy parking lot. Due to the Transport Brewery taking over that location, the previous owner decided to shutter the business for a little while he looked for a new lot, and then decided to go ahead and sell the business. So I bought the business last summer. Have been working diligently over the last year to try to find a location that we could use that would support the business well. And we found 312 Main that fit our needs pretty well. It had adequate parking, it had a place for the building, had the utility hookups that we need. So, any other questions? Or?
No? Any questions at this time? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now, this is a public hearing item. If there are any members of the public that would like to approach and speak on this item, individual, you have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, you have 5. Are there any members of the public that wish to come up and speak on this?
Hello. My name's Steve Warren. I live at 322 West Main, just adjacent to where he's putting the business. I just want to say that as a neighbor, as a residential area, I want to say these people have came to everybody and talked to us instead of trying to like throw it in our lap, which has happened before, but that's another story. But I just want to say they've been very, very good at letting us aware of what's going on, what they're going to do. And it is seasonal. And as far as any business that's going to happen around us in that area, speaking for myself, this would be okay. So, so I'm just saying, from a few neighbors that we've talked with him and we've talked with each other, and we're okay. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much for sharing. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this? All right, seeing as though there are no more individuals from the public for this, I will entertain a motion to conclude the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to close the public hearing from Commissioner Juniman with a second by Commissioner Sosa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion passes 5-0 to close the public hearing. So are there any questions for the applicant or staff? I'll start with you, Commissioner
No.
Combs.
I have no questions.
Okay, Commissioner Sosa?
told them that you guys were requesting permit to operate in Gardner, so I just want to welcome you guys back.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benjamin?
No,
Commissioner Jennings?
Yeah, I remember staff mentioned in the report there wasn't any details for lighting. Are there a plan for the, I guess for the question for the applicant, are there plans to have any sort of lighting on the property? I know the operating hours might not require it, but I wasn't sure what the plan was.
There is some lighting built into the building, soffit lighting to light the general area around the facility. I don't have any current plans for overhead lights because, like you said, you know, the hours don't really necessitate additional lighting. And we had concerns with shining lights in neighbors' windows and stuff like that we were trying to avoid.
Okay, good. So
And just to clarify for Commissioner Juniman that any type of improvements beyond what was shown or was indicated through this process, the application process, the applicant would have to come back to us. We'd have to assess if it was addressed within the conditions. If it was not, they may have to come back for an amended CUP at that point in time.
Okay, sounds good. And yeah, answer my question about if it's gonna be stored off-site, which was nice in those off hours. And yeah, I know there's a lot of items in the suggested motion, but I think like with the last thing that happened on that property, I think it's good to put some guardrails, and it's good to hear from members of the community that they've been working with the residents and finding something that works, so.
Well, that would have been one question is, do you know the history? And
Yes.
Yeah.
clearly that was answered.
All right. I would just like to reiterate, Commissioner Sosa, welcome back. My children are adults now, but that has been a staple of Gardner since I don't know when. So it's nice, and I really do appreciate you checking with the surrounding neighbors and getting their say in what you're doing. And I really appreciate that, and I would like to say thank you for that. That's all I have. Seeing as that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, I've got a motion. Do you want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. After review of application 24-305-01, a conditional use permit for Nice Ice Baby at 312 West Main Street, and staff report dated May 22nd, 2024. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the application as processed with the following conditions. Number one, the conditional use permit shall expire on December 31st of 29. Number two, the applicant shall be required to submit a temporary use permit application to be reviewed.
Can I interject? Seeing as though there's so many, you can, if we're
I
not.
can go one through.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The conditions as outlined in the staff report.
I wish you would have stopped me at one.
Sorry.
So I'm going to rewind. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the application as proposed with the following conditions 1 through 6.
13.
On the next page, 7 through 13. 1 through 13.
All right, I have
Second.
a first by Commissioner Combs and the second by Commissioner Cooper, Commissioner Juniman, sorry. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion passes 5-0 for approval. All right, thank you. I think next up on our agenda is the CIP conformance review.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Dave Noppick, Community Development Director. As you know, once a year, we come before you with the capital improvement program that staff has developed through multiple departments. Your job is to look and see if it is in conformance with adopted plans. What the planning staff does, since none of these departments are our department, is we look at that review ahead of time, and therefore you'll have a recommendation for us. But just to remind you of the process here, we're following Kansas State Statute 12748. This virtually links the comprehensive plan to the capital improvement program. And that's important. What we want to make sure is that the investments that the city are making in physical improvements are within that comprehensive plan for future growth, that they're accommodating that growth, but also addressing issues that are within the city. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but again, your primary role here is to look at this from a conformance standpoint. It's not a financial review. That's the council's decisions to make and things like that. So we're really here to assess what's been proposed as far as projects in light of that comprehensive plan. So you'll review that. The intended result then is to look at how these planning documents will tie to budget tools that are used moving forward. It also ties the immediate public investments to our long-range goals that are in that comprehensive plan, so that becomes critical. When it comes to looking at this, the comprehensive plan, there is a chapter there that's called the CIE, if you will. So CIP, Capital Improvements Program. CIE is an element or a chapter within your comprehensive plan that looks out 20 plus years. The Capital Improvements Program is pretty narrow here. You're usually looking at about a 5-year window. So if you think about it as stair steps, you have a biannual budget, 1 to 2 year budget that has things identified in it, a capital improvement program that looks out a little bit further and ahead, because we're trying to put projects in line for funding from other agencies, not just from the city. So we always want to watch for that. So we're trying to pursue that funding. And then that CIE is a longer range outlook. It doesn't even have real financial projections tied to it at that point. It's really just a physical outlook of what's there. So the primary comprehensive goals that we see that the capital improvements plan identifies with, and these are general. Remember, the comp plan goals are not highly specific. They tend to be general umbrella statements. So we're trying to look at things like high quality and dependable public services and facilities, maintaining safe and efficient transportation networks, and then supporting growth, obviously, and making sure that we're putting those investments in areas of growth, where we're seeing growth occurring or where we anticipate growth to occur. The key components to understand with the CIP is that we're identifying needs at this point, because some of these projects are needed projects, but when we think about needs, think about the financial needs too. How do we position ourselves to potentially access other funds from other agencies? So that becomes appropriate. Then we try to determine costs, which is getting more and more difficult with inflation that we've had in the last couple of years, some of the dynamics with supply chain issues and things like that. So we try to at least look at this from the city's perspective and shoot at that goal to have a higher number sometimes than what we anticipate. There's usually contingency amounts that are tied to this, trying to anticipate that inflation. It also prioritizes capital requests. So you would have seen in that chart, the summary chart in particular, there's a list of priorities. I think primarily 1 through 3 is what you saw in most of those priorities at that point in time. And then developing those financial strategies, which really is something that occurs more with the city council and the staff coming from the finance department and the administration department. I'm going to go a little bit off these slides. I'm going to click through these slides, but I'm going to talk about a few things here. This is kind of a reorganization of the summary list, if you think about it. That summary list that was provided in your packets is by department. So you had parks, you had public works, and then you had utilities as the 3 primary departments. In this, the finance department has taken those and placed them underneath the various goals. Remember, I talked about high quality and dependable public services. So this is their attempt at sitting there and saying, this is where these projects fit in under those 3 broad categories of goals. And you can see with Veterans Park, the restroom rehab. What I want to talk about first, we might as well just hit the parks and recreation. This is kind of an ongoing situation where we're upgrading playground equipment, both at Celebration Park and also at Stone Creek Park, and then the restroom rehab at Veterans. 2 of these items include some inclusive elements to them. The restroom at Veterans is a more inclusive oriented restroom. And then with Celebration, there will be an inclusive set of playground equipment there, not necessarily to the level of Veterans, but the attempt is going to be to have that as part of that rehab. And then at Stone Creek, it's really a replacement of aged facilities at that point in time. So when you think about that, that element of this is also funded by park impact fees that are collected many times by development that's coming into the community, but then that fund is sometimes supplemented with more general fund elements. The airport facility, I do want to point out, because the airport has a number of projects going with it. These are very dependent on FAA funding. If we do not receive funding from the FAA, these projects could be pushed off for years at a time. So essentially, this is a program that talks to some of the improvements out at the municipal airport. This is not New Century, so understand this is out west on 175th Street. But the goal here is that these projects have been identified. There has been some basic investments in that, and now it's time to access those FAA funds. Many times that FAA fund will pay up to about 90% of some of these project costs, but again, it depends on the rotation of those fees and how important they are. We're competing for with other cities and communities that have airport facilities, so we're not guaranteed to have these funds at that point in time. The other elements here, that pretty much takes care of this, other than I will talk to the wastewater treatment plant with utilities. Many of the items there with the wastewater treatment element of this are intended to support things that may be EPA requirements that are coming up. For instance, nutrient removal, they have to hit certain guidelines and certain standards in that process. But then as we move to some of the this will be more of the roads, but then other elements of that sanitary system need to grow along with our community. So you saw there's an interceptor line improvement, there's a water line transmission improvement. Much of that is to get the water from the place that we need to get it from, which is the plant, to the city to accommodate growth here. But it serves also the existing customers when we expand those kinds of things. Under safe and efficient transportation, this is primarily having to do with the road improvements that are there. Again, many of these improvements are associated with a variety of other funding sources. We get funding from MARC, which is STP funds for some of our road improvements. We also have to partner with KDOT. So for instance, when you look at the Gardner Road Bridge, which is a project that's already started, this next phase, there is a portion that we have to cover as a community with KDOT, basically through federal funds covering the remainder of that cost. So usually we're in for a cost share situation with those items. Other elements or other pieces that we look at with things like rehabbing of the roads or improvements to interchanges. We're looking at CARS funding, which usually comes from the county that assists us with road improvements, assists multiple communities within Johnson County with roads assistance. So many times those are scheduled based on where we think we can get that money and at what time we think you can get that money from those folks. So when you think about that, those elements are intended to enhance our roadway system. I will mention two that are critical, that are in design to a certain extent, and that's 167th Street. You saw the one from Center to Moonlight, and then on the other side there from Waverly to Kill Creek. The 167th corridor, as you know, is receiving more and more residential growth along it. We have started some pre-design on that, the Public Works has, and so they're working forward to make those reconstruction projects ready for consideration for funding. So that's where they're going with those. Supporting growth, again, this is a combination primarily of utilities things. I mentioned a little bit of this. I will suggest or will say that when it comes to the electric program, many of these electric projects are things that are identified in the electric system master plan, either the most recent one or the one that has just been adopted or in that adoption process. So a lot of this has to do with supporting elements of growth that are necessary to keep that power grid going with the growth that we have planned, especially over on the east side of I-35 where a new substation is planned. So with that, the recommended motion from staff is that after review the proposed 2025-2029 capital improvement program, the Planning Commission finds the proposed program to be in conformance with the adopted comprehensive plan. I'll stand ready for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner.
Yeah, I do have a few questions. Is it fair to say that even like for the FAA mentioned in the descriptions for the airport, it's at 90%? was or could be funded. Is it fair to say those funds have already been won for that particular project, or are we still in the,
No.
it has to be planned so that we can be prepared to go win?
So some plans have been already developed for like the air terminal and some other items. There are master plans that have been adopted for some of these improvements when it comes more to like the runway and the aprons and things like that. So many of the operational plans have been approved. They're just in line for submission for that funding. Now, we only receive, we will only receive a certain amount of funding every year. There's kind of a dedicated amount. If we don't use funds in one year, there are times that the FAA has allowed us to aggregate funds for bigger projects. So like the airport terminal project, it has been designed, it's prepared for submission with FAA. How they choose to look at it for funding, they may come back to us and say, we're only going to fund to a certain extent. We may say, well, that's not enough to cover it. So we're going to delay that project, put it off to a later year. And if we aggregate more funds because we didn't use some in previous years, that allows us maybe to muster up to that 90% essentially.
And just in general, so for a plan in 2025 or a project, would those funds that would be provided or awarded by the end of this year? You know, what are those cycles like? Just in general, I mean, that's probably a very broad question.
Yeah. It kind of depends on the funding cycle of the agencies that we're involved with.
Sure.
So I will say that. But when we put it into 2025, that's the year we expect to expend the money. So that would be, you know, competing for it, having it in line and ready to go. So we have a couple of projects in there. I'll use Gardner Road Bridge over I-35. They've already projected a letting date for that contract, which should be this fall sometime.
Okay.
So we kind of know what the timeline is in the short run for those, but the actual expenditure funds, they'll negotiate contracts and things like that, probably would not be until 2025 at the earliest. Now, each of these agencies that are running these kinds of programs were subject to delays. We've seen that before, especially with KDOT projects, where they may be on a timeline for a while here, but they could get delayed in the process. That may cause a shifting from 2025 to 2026 or something like that.
I have one last question, and I don't intend to pick this piece apart, but I have to ask the question. The bathroom rehab in Veterans Park, the $200,000 that's identified for it, I would only imagine that someone has gone out, had put together some sort of a plan, and my only inquiry there is, I know that bathroom well and the area very well, and if it's only being rehabbed, is it getting bigger? Is there going to, or would there be more stalls? Is that what the plan is?
Yeah, the intent is to bring it up to ADA standards. So it right now does not meet the Americans with Disability Act standards. So the goal is to bring it up to that. Now, I don't know enough about the size or what that may change specifically. I just know that it is not up to standard currently. The reason it's been identified is because of the past investment on the inclusive playground there. So there's an anticipation that more of that type of facility will be needed there. Now, the other thing just to note with that is that it's also based on receiving a grant, a 50-50 grant with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So that may also determine to what level the rehabilitation takes place.
I maybe had, that was probably my last and final question, was the anticipation. So thank you very much for answering. I have no
Commissioner Sosa?
I had a couple questions, but Dave, when you started your presentation, you actually answered one of my questions. Because I remember we reviewed this last year, so I didn't know if it was, we do this every year.
Right.
Or if it's, okay.
Yeah,
it's
so
an yearly review. So
yeah, and it's good. I'll just give you the recap because it is good for everybody. We've got enough new faces actually, you know, here that when you look at this, each year we do a 5-year CIP, but it's kind of on that rotational basis. We're always increasing in 1 year and looking out that 1 year further. So sometimes you may find if you were to take your agenda packet from last year at this time and look at this, you might have seen one of our 2025 projects that's identified here may have been in 2024. But a lot of that had to do with we may not have received the supplemental funding that was necessary for that project. So that's why it's kind of this ongoing process year by year. Some communities do a 10-year CIP, we happen to do a 5-year.
That was the first question. And I guess the second question that I had, Commissioner Combs already addressed, so I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
No questions, thanks for explaining it. No further questions. Answer them.
All right. Just thank you. Every year it gets more concise. I know I love, the explanation, the breakdown, and now with the presentation, even breaking it down and condensing it for even more consideration. So I appreciate that. I have no questions.
Like I said, just so you know, and the commissioners who will continue on in the next year or so, for you all, this is important because we will come back again next May, June, in that period of time usually. And like I said, your review is relatively limited, so is staff's review on the planning side. We're really looking at that consistency with the comprehensive plan, so. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further discussion or questions on this, I will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll entertain that motion. I'm trying to get there. Only one page. I have to
No
review.
conditions.
This is the easy one. I don't even know why I hesitated. After review of the proposed 2025-2029 capital improvement program, the Planning Commission finds the proposed program to be in conformance with the adopted Gardner Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All right, I have a motion presented by Commissioner Combs with a second by Commissioner Souza. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? Seeing as none,
And Madam Chair, I'll just suggest also what happens with this now that you've done your voting. This set of minutes will go towards the City Council with your recommendation. So any questions you asked, all the conversation, they'll have access to that in their considerations as they're doing it.
okay. All right, thank you. Motion carries 5-0. All right, final item on the agenda is chair elections. So at this time, I will announce that I have resigned my commission, and so I am not seeking to renew my commission. I was elected to the KCK NEA Executive Board, and I have decided to accept that position, and I can't do both, so I have resigned my commission as chair.
So this will be Commissioner Ham's final meeting with you all tonight. I'm going to expand on this while we're here. As you know, every year we come around to that annual cycle for looking at the officers moving forward for a one-year term. So it's chairman and vice chairman. Commissioner Ham has been serving as your chair for the past year. Commissioner Juniman has been serving as the vice chair in that consideration. So in your packet, you had the staff report looking at the bylaws and indicating the two offices that are up for election, which is the chair and vice chair. Technically, I serve as the secretary of the Planning Commission, although we have more productive people doing the minutes and things like that. So I will just let you know that. So from that perspective, that's not an elected position. That's appointed by the city administrator. From that standpoint, so all the staff recommendation is that you nominate and elect the chair and a vice chair to serve for the next year, the 24-25 period, which would take you through May of next year when we'll have elections again. I will note two things. I know we have two commissioners missing tonight. This is an item that if you feel like you want those two commissioners in on that discussion,
you can certainly delay this, just recognize what will happen at the next meeting. If you do something like that, Commissioner Juniman will step in as the chair, the acting chair of the Planning Commission at that point in time, because we will not have elected those officers, and because this is Commissioner Ham's last meeting, she will not be in attendance or be a voting member. The other thing that will be happening tonight, just so you're aware, Commissioner Vonderschmidt and Commissioner Souza, along with Commissioner Berg, right, Robin, will be sworn into office. For Commissioner Souza, for Commissioner Vonderschmidt, this will be the renewal of the terms. For Commissioner Berg, this will be the first time he has served, so he'll actually be taking Commissioner Ham's place. So we had some fortunate timing this time around that worked in our favor on this. Go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, so, so chairman and vice chairman, so can they get reelected?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
as many time as they're doing their term, they can be chairman for as many times as.
Correct.
Oh.
There is nothing in the bylaws that has a limit that says you can
Okay.
only serve one term or
Okay.
two consecutive
Those
terms
are
in those
my
offices.
Okay.
Now, what we tried to watch for, because terms don't always align with our election period, is if we have somebody that may only be up for another 2 months and their terms are expiring, we kind of look at that and go, it's probably not a good thing to elect them as a chair, because in 2 months, that person may be off the commission. So we try to watch it in alignment with those terms, you know, the appointment terms.
Okay. thank
But
you.
right now, I don't think we have anybody that's in that situation. I do know Commissioner Mader's term, I believe it expires in June of next year, so it'd be a 12-month period. I think that's correct.
So it's.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Cooper's maybe even,
It's the same, yeah.
is it the same? Yeah, you're right around that same time also, but it fulfills the 12-month period.
As far as, I think we're in a good position to,
I was gonna ask, have you heard from Mader or Cooper if they, either of them expressed interest in wanting to?
Commissioner Cooper did not mention anything in the communication. It was more that she could not make it. I know she communicated with us a couple days ago that she was gonna be potentially late because of an appointment that she had, a personal item, and then tonight, just a couple hours ago, somewhere near the end of the business day, we got an email from her that said she would not be able to make it tonight at all. Commissioner Mader said that if she was nominated for either position, she would entertain that, was fine with that, if the name came up. If it didn't, she was okay with that too, I assume.
Okay, so as this is my last meeting, I do not get a vote?
You're still sitting on the commission.
Okay,
so you
all
still
right,
got a
I
vote.
didn't know how that worked.
Yep.
Okay, so can I make a nomination? I would like to nominate Commissioner Juniman for chair.
I second.
Okay.
I'll accept that.
Okay,
I mean, as long as we vote.
okay, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Commissioner Juniman.
Did Commissioner Juniman actually vote for himself? Did he? Did
Can
you?
I not do that?
No, I think.
I thought you did. I'm sorry. Yes, you can.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
if you did.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a
Okay, you're good.
All right.
conflict of interest. I can't vote for this.
I think I did the same thing when I was elected. I'm
You're
like,
good.
ass.
So you,
I'd like to make a motion for Commissioner Souza to be vice chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Souza, congratulations. So I would just like to say to staff, thank you. This has been an awesome 3 years, I think it's been, 3.5. So thank you for my time. Thank you for including me on all of the things that Dave has roped me into over the past couple of years. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. Thank you.
And now you can tell Commissioner Juniman about all the things he has to do as a chair. I
disclose or anything ahead of
Yeah.
time. No, I will say Commissioner Ham has served the city in a couple of different capacities. When the airport master plan for New Century was coming out, she was part of the technical review committee on that. Again, that was an appointment that was kind of made through the planning commission and through the staff here. It wasn't because she was chair at the time, because I think this was early on at that point in time, but you had background as an air traffic controller. So that element of it played into why she was asked to do that role. And certainly as we have things like that in the area, there may be opportunities for you all to serve, even at the county level for those kinds of facilities that may be around the city of Gardner. So we try to watch out for those at every opportunity we get. So with that, I'm sad to see Commissioner Ham go. She has done a good job as both the chair and a member of the planning commission. So it's great to have you serving the community.
Thank you, and it's been an honor.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about my new role. All right, that all being said.
Before you adjourn,
Before I adjourn.
just a couple housekeeping
Okay.
items. I think, do we want to do the oath of office after we adjourn? Okay, so we'll do that after we adjourn. So Commissioner Sosa and Commissioner Vonderschmidt, if you'll stick around, Renee will administer the oath of office to you all. So I want to make sure you don't get out too early on that. There will be a June Planning Commission, at least at this point in time, just so you're aware. We do have a couple items for that meeting to consider. So plan on that. If you have scheduling conflicts with the summer months approaching, things like that, the sooner you let me know so I can determine what a quorum looks like for those meetings. And if we have to somehow reschedule or do something differently through a special meeting, we can at least have time to make those kinds of arrangements. So I just want to make sure if you do anticipate a conflict with the June meeting in particular, but also in July and August, knowing that it's the fourth Monday, we'll be back on Mondays instead of a Tuesday night. So hopefully you won't have conflicts and we'll all be good. But if you do have something personal with vacation or something, just let me know up front and we can see what I've got for quorums at that point, because I can always poll the commission and try to figure out if we've got an issue and need to reschedule something, or if we can avoid not having quorums. Okay. With that, I think that's all we have.
So the next one is on the 24th, right? Just check.
Let me just double check.
That's it. Because I have vacation. I don't know. It's the 24th.
Yes. Is it the 24th of June?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Bob, is there anything else?
No, there isn't, Dave.
It's so weird seeing you guys sit on opposite sides. I kept looking over here for Bob. All right, seeing as though there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a first by Commissioner Juniman with a second by Commissioner Vanderschmidt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.